So I'm delighted that you joined us, right? Let's start with the latest. So where are we tonight with you were there today?
Yeah.
Right. Where are we tonight with the games?
So we're actually expecting to get 2 medals in swimming. The women's 50-meter breaststroke, where Nadia Ajay has been competing, but she came up 7th in the final. And then Nubia Ajay, I beg your pardon. And then we had Abeku Jackson, who also won Ghana's first medal in swimming at the African Games only 2 days ago. Unfortunately, someone false started in the final for the men's 100-meter butterfly today. And so that final has been rescheduled for tomorrow. In terms of chess, we have been sent packing because unfortunately we could not go beyond the quarters of the competition. That is for chess. I was at the Laboma Beach today where the beach volleyball contest took place. Ghana played 2 matches, the men's team. The first of those was versus Togo. We recovered from the first set's loss to win by 2-1. And then at 2 p.m. we beat Senegal by 2 straight sets. The female team also beat their counterparts from the Gambia by 2-1. Just like the men's team, they also recovered from the first set's deficit to win by 2-1. However, the third match for the men's team and the second match for the women's team could not be played because of a hiccup. Now, per the schedule that the organizers have given us, there are not supposed to be any night matches.
There?
Yes.
Because, of course, we have floodlights at the sports stadium here. I'm talking about...
At the beach volleyball.
At the beach volleyball.
Laboma Beach.
Yeah.
There are not supposed to be night matches. But the game between Nigeria and Egypt, the women's beach volleyball group stage game, traveled a bit later into the night.
But University of Ghana has floodlights, right?
Yes, it does. Okay. But so the whole idea of not playing those matches in the night is that you do not have the floodlights. If the schedule included night matches, then you would have floodlights. Now, even though there's a bit of lights there, those night matches at these games need to be of a certain intensity. I think 1,000 watts or 10,000 watts.
And we didn't have that
before. So we didn't have that. And because of that, we did not schedule any of the matches for the night. But this one happened to travel into the night. And so eventually the organizer had to truncate the match, ended it abruptly.
When did this start, though? Because that is a curiosity. Because knowing exactly that you don't have...
I think shortly after 5 p.m.
But everybody knows if you start a game shortly after night, 5 p.m. in Ghana,
exactly,
you are definitely going to play in the dark.
So that's what happened. So that is going to be the first on tomorrow's schedule, Nigeria versus Egypt, the women's game.
So clarity. Yeah. So the players actually started playing?
Yes. They were in the second set.
So that would have been able to play for what, an hour or 2?
No. So for beach volleyball, 3 sets. 2 sets, and then in the third, if one team is not able to win 2 straight sets, we go to a tiebreaker in the third set of the first team to reach 15 points.
Okay.
So we were in the second set when, unfortunately, the officials had to call off. So once that match was called off, Ghana's scheduled match with Burkina Faso for the men's team and the women's team were also going to play Burkina Faso automatically had to be called.
So this is a simple organizational issue. Whoever was managing that particular...
Needed to ensure that once...
You don't start at 5. I mean, because if you start at 5, you would
even
definitely...
Even after 4:30, you make the determination that...
Take the game to the next day. Take the game to the next day. Okay. Gary's with me. Gary, so where do you stand on this Africa game so far? I mean, I know you raised concerns, and concerns have been there even before we started. Now we've started. Have your concerns been validated or have you been proven wrong?
Good evening, everyone. I believe that the concerns have been, validated. You remember the first reports that blew the alarm on the problems of the Africa Games came from Joy Sports, the one that has been referenced copiously by the LOC chairman, Dr. Kuku at every opportunity. The one we went and saw just the bush and the cattle grazing there. Remember that report?
Yes.
And so that was the first time in 2021. We've come a long way. Botiman has been built. Legon has been spruced up. And some renovations have been made elsewhere. However, my colleagues, one in the studio with you, Victor, Fent, and the others have traveled more in the last few months across the length and breadth of the capital and have brought us the problems as they have seen. So it had to do with the finishing of the various facilities, right? So you see them standing there, but then you see little challenges, and that's what we've seen in the past week. Today I just posted, something about the podiums. I don't know if you saw that post.
No. What about the podiums?
The podium. They had used an A4 sheet to write the numbers 1, 2, 3. A4 sheet for the podiums.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So these are some of the small issues. There are carpentry works that are still ongoing in certain places as we speak. Okay, so there's that. And you ask yourself, if we have used about $200 million, Evans, this is dollars, United States, Joe Biden dollars we are talking about here. We shouldn't be having these issues, or they shouldn't be at this scale or to this scale. Because if you compare, only last year, again, Joy Sports was very well represented with George Addo Jr., Fento, and Muftau at the World Athletics Championships in Budapest, right? You know how much those games cost?
Tell me.
180 million euros.
180, and that was it bigger in terms of participants?
World athlete in terms of quality, every metric.
Yeah.
Right? That costs 180 million euros to put together. So if you've got that and you tell Ghanaian taxpayers, because this is and was an opportunity for Ghanaian taxpayers to look at the rest of Africa and say, after beyond the return in December, after we have given you the jams, the best party in Africa, we can give you the best sporting atmosphere in Africa. Come to the motherland. We are not doing that. So that's it, really. The expectations have not been met to the degree that we expect.
The cost question is fascinating indeed, because the Morocco one has been cited. I cited it in my intro, and then you cited the global athletics too, with the cost there. That is a question that must be answered at some point. But Jerome, I mean, what about you? I mean, the story that shocked me the most. And by the way, just for the avoidance of doubt, this is a tournament that I am in favor of, because obviously we've been complaining for a long time that we're not investing in athletics, etc. So of course, if you're investing 242 million in that lesser discipline, so-called, to build infrastructure and etc., it's good. I mean, legacy, provided you can maintain it, because you have the infrastructure to train more people to go and etc. So at some level, it's good. Question is about timing and priority now. But then I hear that cyclists were ready to cycle. The ambulance that was supposed to accompany them didn't have fuel. That was a shocker. That definitely was a shocker. I mean, as for the Doomsaw bit, it's a whole different conversation, because of course you are a global showpiece. It is beyond the continent. You have to put your best foot forward, especially if you spend 247 million. Where do you stand on this question about, are we making it count?
I think we are making an effort to make it count in the face of the general problems we have with sports administration in the country. And I have been very clear about the way we've gone about sports development in our country. I don't think we are doing sports development. A lot of the things we are doing are done on impulse. We wait until the last minute. We look at whether or not we can save ourselves from being embarrassed. We rushed in and we spend anyhow. And that is not sports development. As I listened to your intro, you made mention of Morocco. You made mention of Egypt. All the countries you cited, they do not do things the way we are doing here. And that is why you organize these games and have problems. And I'll tell you what, it's a culmination of the lack of seriousness in terms of whoever is leading our sports development agenda, if at all there is a sports development agenda. And also, I would say, undue political meddling. And I'm sorry to say this, I do not think that the LOC is in charge of this competition. I am afraid that they have been more or less put somewhere, and some other people are handling this competition. Because, Evans, I have seen some international games, even if I have not traveled to the World Athletics Championship or the games that Gary was referring to. I have followed them closely on television, and I have seen how some of those games have been organized. And I have had also a very close look at how things are being done here. And even as against the last time Ghana, hosted an international competition. And this is not how we went about the business. It clearly tells you that things are wrong with the way there are certain things are not on.
Yeah,
I don't think
normally we'll blame lack of resources. But from everything else I've heard, this is not one of those events or tournaments that lack of resources is an issue, because we spend a lot of money already.
It's about allowing the right people to do the job, because you see, all the things that we are talking about are technical issues. If cyclists do not have the right bicycles to use for their competition, it is not a political matter. A politician doesn't decide that. You leave it to those with the expertise who understand what this competition requires and what a cyclist must have to be able to participate. I heard the chef de mission, or one of the officials in the morning, saying that he's not even aware that some athletes were put in the bucket of a pickup. And I was surprised. He said that he's not aware. He was even challenging the journalist as to whether that information is even true, until the journalist went on to give names. And then he backtracks to say he will go and check. That clearly tells you that he's not on top of it.
Stay with me. Dan Kwekuyeboy has been listening. Dan, how do you respond to the concerns that have been raised? And Dan is obviously with the LOC.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Evans. One thing we must not lose sight of is that this is the first time Ghana is organizing a multi-sport event. And if you do comparison with respect to the strength of our economy, especially when it comes to the spending, to a large extent, I will agree with you. But if you do comparison, for example, what my brother Gary was alluding to,
World Athletics
Championship, it's a single event. No matter how well it was organized, it's a single event. This is 29 disciplines. It's a competition that involves 29 disciplines. So obviously, the challenges will not be the same as organizing a single event. Of course, some of the mistakes that have occurred were avoidable. But we must also admit that for Ghana as a country, it is a learning process for us.
Really?
Yes.
How long have we had to prepare for this game?
Evans, it's a different thing to learn something, and it's a different thing to practically experience.
We won the right in
2018.
Won the right in 2018. But so the LOC was put together 2 years after. And then immediately we were put together, COVID set in. Just as we're about gaining ground, the impasse between the African Union, ANOCA, and UCSA also cropped up. So we had our challenges. That is not to say we should justify some of the happenings.
But how did that impasse affect our preparations?
No, it did. Let me tell you why. Sponsorship is one area that were badly affected. You go to a sponsor and ask for a sponsorship support, and he tells you when is the games happening, and you'll be stuck. You don't know what to tell the sponsor. And no serious sponsor would want to deal with a group that does not know when their event is happening.
So we began active preparation for this when?
When the impasse was resolved.
So this is when? Last year or the year before?
February last year.
That was last year. And it took the intervention of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for the impasse to be resolved.
When you say impasse,
we had to, between the stakeholders, ANOCA, UCSA, and AU. You know, the AU are the custodians of the games.
The others didn't want to participate.
When they held the Morocco tournament, they had a tripartite agreement. that going forward, we're going to organize the games based on ABC. AU unilaterally decided to cancel the tripartite agreement. And the rest of the group said, no way. It is either we boycott it or you bring us in. We flew them to Kempinski. We couldn't solve the problem. It took His Excellency Nana Addo to fly to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. The main business he was going to do there was an AU meeting, but he had to spend time on the flip side to attend that meeting, spend about 3 hours, sit in the meeting to ensure the impasse was resolved. It was only after that we saw our way clear. So quite apart from the fact that
this was February last year.
So quite apart from the fact that we do not have the experience of having organized a multi-sport competition, these were also the challenges that we faced. So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves.
No, we have to be. I mean, especially when you're spending that much. And I have said, this is not criticism. The amount in itself and the timing is a whole different conversation. But once you decide to spend that much, you better get it right. You don't disagree with that. I mean, what we've seen now is that we spend on infrastructure. But we actually brought a lot of negative publicity on ourselves because of the way we've managed the whole process of the games themselves.
Well, to some extent, you can't run away from the fact that there have been some negatives.
It's been shambolic.
But equally, there have been so many positives as well. A lot of Ghanaians were watching the opening ceremony and they were amazed. Some were just opposing the opening ceremony of the African Games with La Côte d'Ivoire. And they all drew conclusion that indeed this was a better one. There are a lot of positives. When the tournament started, Ghana moved from 0 medals to 4 medals in a day or 2.
But we've been stuck at 4.
Yes, but it tells you that before the competition...
Egypt is at 75.
No, if it took you 2 days to amass 4 medals, it is possible that by the end of the competition, you can amass more than 20. It is possible.
Actually,
but Evans, a lot of the things Dan is saying here are, I understand his job, but the reality is that everything we're seeing is because we have not planned. Like from the government to the sports ministry, have not planned for these games.
No, that is...
Dan was aware of the Commonwealth Games in 2018. There was a seminal moment in Ghana's participation at that tournament. The cycling team did not have the appropriate cycling equipment. There was a young man in Queensland named Peter Spencer. Listeners can Google him up. He saw the equipment the Ghanaian team was using and then approached them and told them that what you have did not match the quality required to compete at that level. It was the same aluminium bicycles that they were using.
No, but they did a fiber, right?
Just let me finish. So he started a GoFundMe for the team. The response from Ghana's Deputy Director for the Youth and Sports, Robert Safo-Mensah, was that we're not a poor country, we sent bicycles, we're not broke and all of that. Mohamed Sanoun, who was the CDM and also the president of cycling, he knew better. So he clarified and said, we did send bicycles. And here's the catch. Robert Safo-Mensah was referencing the equipment Ghana sent to the previous Olympic Games as the same ones they gave to the cyclists to go and perform.
Wow.
Now, we won the hosting bid for the African Games in the same year, 2018. After that embarrassment of a local cycler starting a GoFundMe to provide or procure appropriate carbon fiber road bicycles for Ghana's cycling team, in the year that we won the hosting right, one of the things, if we were futuristic and had planned for these games, one of the things we would have done is to find a way to raise the funds because cycling is not cheap.
Yeah.
Some of those carbon fiber bicycles can cost up as much as $5,000. So you know that.
But in the grand scheme of things, if you spend 242 million, you should be able to afford.
So I'm saying that
5 million.
Even if that's
if you plan for it.
Yes, even if that's not how much you spent, you need to have a plan in place, knowing that cycling is not rich. But we didn't. Now, even for some of the other issues, right? Like for example, the badminton equipment, they are not the only sports that have their equipment arriving late. And that's why for me, I will always say we did not plan for the games.